Welcome back to my photography journey. My name's Steve and thank you for joining me. Today I want to look in detail at the Nikon Z30. As you know, I bought this a little while ago and now I've had a chance to play around with it a bit more, get everything set up how I want it, and I want to talk you through that process. So when you first get your camera, you just want to get out and play with it, don't you? You just want to get out and start taking pictures, and that's easy enough to do. You can just pop it on auto and go and take pictures as long as you've got an SD card in. There's one slot for one under there, your battery's charged, off you go, you can go and take pictures. But as you get to know your camera, you're going to want to dial in particular settings that you enjoy using, that you want to have at an easy turn of a dial. You don't always want to be using the auto settings. You want to be able to have a bit more creative control. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how to set up the Nikon Z30 and just have a look through the menus in depth and see what we've got. So let's turn the camera on to begin with. Just this switch on the front also doubles up as the shutter release button, so you can press it halfway to focus and then press it all the way down to actually take a picture. Now on the back, we've got various different buttons. Starting from the left hand side here, we've got our burst mode. So if you press that, press and hold it, and then you can use the command dial to go through and choose which of the different burst modes or timers that you want to use. So I'm going to leave mine on single for the moment. So when you press the shutter, it will take a single button. The other options, you've got a low speed one, a high speed one, or a high extended speed. So let's leave that on single for the moment. Next to that is a picture of a dustbin. So if you're looking through your pictures and want it to delete any, you can press that. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I'd always wait until you actually see the picture on Lightroom or whatever editing software that you use, and then from there, that's when you can delete it, because you don't want to be deleting them just from what you can see on this tiny screen on the back. You want to be able to see it properly on your computer. Next up, we've got a display button and a toggle to go between photo and video modes. So that is relatively self-explanatory. If you want to take a video, you turn it to the video camera. If you want to take a still photo, you take it to the camera. The display button changes what is actually shown on the display, so you can cycle through the different options on there, and then it will go back to the where you were. It'll just go round and round with the different options. Next, you've got an auto exposure or an auto focus lock button, which you can press and hold to keep a particular focus or a particular exposure. We'll come into that another time. The I button is your quick access menu on here. This is, and again, we've got touchscreen on here, so you can change the settings on there. You can customize what comes up on this I menu button, and it just gives you easy access to some of the most frequently used settings that you've got. Below that, you've got a dial, which is kind of a control pad, so you can move things around. You've got an OK button in the middle, zoom in and out, a menu, and a playback. So playback is to review the pictures that you've taken. Menu takes you into the menu. So the first thing that we want to do is set our language. Set mine to English because that's what I speak. And then we can go ahead and customize some of our other settings. Once you put your first SD card in, one of the first things that you want to do is actually format that card so that the camera itself puts its own signature files on there. It means that it's then ready to use in that camera. Sometimes you can't use them without having done that, sometimes you can, so just bear that in mind. It will delete everything that's on that SD card, but it should be a blank one when you're starting up with a new camera, so that shouldn't be a problem anyway. So user settings, these are U1, U2 and U3 that we've got on top of the camera, and you can set those up so that they're saved for quickly loading up your different settings for different situations. So I'm going to save one of those now. So let's start with settings for U1. So first of all, I've changed it to manual mode and saved that so that in user 1, we've got manual control of all of our different settings. But let's go through what else we've got in here. So time zone and date. This is just to make sure that the time is set in your camera correctly so that any images that you take will have the correct date and time assigned to them, so it's easier when you're sorting through them or anything like that. Everything in there looks good for me, so let's go back And again, like I said, this is a touchscreen, so you can choose what controls you use with the control pad, pressing OK, or pressing things on the actual screen itself. A lot of these aren't anything too exciting in this setup menu. The record lamp brightness. This is the record lamp at the front of the camera on here, and you can choose how bright it is. So I'm just going to leave it on number 2. Information display. This is whether it's dark on light or light on dark. Let's go back to our main screen, go through our display until we get to the information. Now I find that much more difficult to look at, so I'm going to go back into my menu and change that to dark on light. Let's come back to here, and there we go. I find that much easier to see, so that's what I'll leave that as. I'm not too worried about fine-tuning AF or non-CPU lens data. Save focus position. This is if you want to maintain where in the screen the focus is once you kind of go out and do something else and come back to it. I'm not fussed about that, because generally speaking, I will have changed what I'm taking a picture of if I've come out of the menus or turned the camera off, so I don't need to worry about that. You can put in any particular comments for any of the images. You can put in your copyright information. So let me include some copyright information in here. And again, it's a touch screen. So let me just put in, there we go, so that's okay, that one. You can choose whether you want it to beep or not when you're using the different controls. No, not for me. Touch controls, yes, I do want to be able to touch the screen to control things. Self-portrait mode, I've not explored that one yet, so I'm going to leave that on for now and then decide later whether that's something that I want to keep or not. HDMI, so my HDMI resolution I want to be as high as possible. Advanced settings, I want it to be the full range, and I want to enable external recording. So this is more the video side of things, so that when I'm connected up via the HDMI cable, I can have a bit more control of what the camera's doing. Airplane mode, don't want to do that. Connect to smart device. So one thing that you can do is connect to a smart device, but we're going to leave that and have a completely separate tutorial on that another time. Again, connect to computer as well. I'll include that in the smart device because those two are quite useful together. So stay tuned for that. Remember to subscribe to get notified when that actually comes out. USB power delivery, you want that on so that you can charge your battery while a USB device is plugged into it. So a battery bank or something like that. So you can make your battery last longer, particularly if you're using the video side of things. Then you can connect it up and it will drain the battery a lot less. The battery will last a lot longer if it's connected up to a USB power bank as well. And then you've got energy saving mode when you're in photo, which basically turns the display and everything off quicker than it would otherwise. If you don't have an SD card in there, you want to be able to stop yourself trying to take pictures with it. You can load different menu options, you can reset everything, or you can change the firmware. So that's everything in the basic menu for setting up. So let's have a look at some of the stills options now as well. So the default storage folder on the camera is labeled NZ_30. Makes sense to me. File naming, so I'm going to change this actually, and I am going to call it SMP for Stephen Martin Photography. We'll OK that, and you'll see I use a strange combination of using the dial, pressing the screen. There's no rhyme or reason to it, it's just the way that I tend to do it. Image area, so we want as big as possible. This is an APS-C size sensor, so it's a crop sensor, which in Nikon terms is a DX sensor. Image quality, we want to shoot in RAW, because in RAW you've got the most control over your photos when you're actually doing your editing. There's more information stored in that file, so you can change things a bit more when you're editing, and it's just a better format to take and store your pictures in. And we want them to have as much quality as possible, so we've got 14-bit. ISO sensitivity, we're going to turn the auto off so that we're more in control of our sensitivity settings, so we're more in control of our exposure. White balance, I'm going to set this to a particular value, which I'm going to say is 5,600 Kelvin, which is essentially daylight, but if I set everything to that, then everything starts in the same position so that any editing that I do is from a same starting position. Picture controls, I want everything to be as flat as possible. Again, this is so that I can do the editing myself and make it look how I want rather than the colors that Nikon thinks is right. The color space that I'm going to use is Adobe RGB because I use Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop, and it's a slightly bigger color space than sRGB. So that's why I'm going to use that. Some of these other settings like active delighting, long exposure, noise reduction, these are things that the camera tries to do to help your images. I'm not a big fan of them. I like to be more in control of things on there, but they do work quite nicely. They are quite useful. So again, noise reduction off, vignette control off, fraction compensation, I'll turn that off as well. Distortion compensation, I'll turn that off. Flicker reduction, shooting, I'll leave off as well. Metering, so this is how your images are exposed in terms of the camera. So the meters on the side of your display when you are going to take a picture, this is what they're based on. Is it on the whole screen? Is it weighted more towards the center? Is it just the spot at which you are taking the picture, which you're focusing, I should say, or is it biased towards the highlights so that it will tell you how bright the brightest part of the image is? What I tend to do is center weighted because usually what I want to take a picture of is more often than not in the center of the frame. Flash mode, I've never actually used a flash on my camera since I've got my Nikons. I'm not expecting that to change anytime soon, but I will update you obviously if that does change. Release mode, so this is whether it's single frame or faster than that. I'm going to leave it on single for now because with this camera there are some very fast shutter speeds and you can easily accidentally shoot more than one picture at once. Focus mode, AFA, this is new on here. I've not seen this before. The idea is that it will switch between single and continuous depending on what you're taking a picture of. So I'm going to experiment with that and see what it's like. I'm going to take some pictures of the dogs and other wildlife and things and people maybe, and just see how good it is at tracking them and see how well it works. Similar idea here in the auto area, you can choose between people or animals. So auto bracketing, this is where you can set up your camera so that if you take, let's say 3 pictures, then it will change the exposure of those 3 pictures, and you take 3 pictures in a row, they'll all be exposed slightly differently so that you can then blend them together in something like Lightroom afterwards to get the best of the highlights, best of the shadows, and get a good overall picture. I'm going to leave that off for now, but it's nice to know that that option is there. Same with multiple exposure, you can do these things automatically as well so that the camera does all the work for you. Same with high dynamic range. Interval timer shooting, so you can take a picture every 10 seconds or something like that, or you can record a time-lapse video. Both of those I've made a video about before, so go back and have a look at that if you've got any questions. It works exactly the same in the Z30 as it does in the Z5. And silent photography, if you don't want the shutter sound, which is quite good because it does make quite a lot of noise, but I do actually quite like the sound of the shutter in this camera. But the silent does come in useful sometimes. We'll leave the video recording menu for the moment and come back to that in a separate video. And then the custom setting menu, this is where a lot of the fine details are in terms of like your controls, customizing things like the buttons on the front and that kind of thing. So we're going to look at that in a bit more detail. So that will be coming up. So don't forget to subscribe in order to find out when that is. But for now, I'm really pleased with this. I need to take it out for a few more shots and things in order to get the most from it and work out exactly how I want my settings. But other than that, the last thing I want to remember to do is save my user settings, and I'm going to have this as user 1. So just save my settings on there and then it's ready to go. So when I next go out, I just need to turn it around to user 1, and those settings that I've created in there, they're going to be there automatically loaded up, ready to go. and you have separate ones for photo, separate ones for video. So I can switch between the two, switch between U1, U2, U3, and then have lots of different options of how I have my camera customized to get the most of it for me. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you've learned something on that. I hope it was useful to go through those menus in a bit more detail. And like I said, we'll go through the video settings another day, and then another day we'll look at the custom settings menu, because in there's a lot of different options and I want to spend a bit more time going through them and explaining exactly what they do. So thank you for joining me on my photography journey. If you've got any comments, questions or anything like that, leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you again next week. So have a great week. Bye.